Welcome to Speaking Read Aloud Practice at number 1. As we just discussed in the introduction, in this type of question, you'll see some text on the screen and you'll have 30 or 40 seconds to read that text and first understand it. And after that, the microphone will open up, and in 30 or 40 seconds, you'll have to read out, what you are seeing on the screen. Okay, so the first 40 seconds are there for you to become familiar with the text, to sort of rehearse it in your mind, to identify any difficult words and to try to pronounce it. Also, during those first 30 or 40 seconds, you should identify which are the places where you're going to pause, where are the places where you're going to raise your voice, lower your voice, which words are you going to put some stress on. All those things are what are going to determine the kind of score that you get. Okay, so you don't have to just read it out like a robot. You have to read it out naturally, fluently. The pronunciation has to be correct. You should be able to identify the punctuations, commas, pause at the appropriate places, stop at the right places. Okay, and essentially be able to convey, through your tone and through the way you speak, what's important in the sentence. So you should be able to convey the meaning in place of just reading it out. All right. Now the way we are going to practice this, when I go to question number one, uh, you'll see the text on the screen, and at the same time, a countdown timer will start for 40 seconds. As soon as that ends, another countdown timer will start for 40 seconds. During that second countdown timer, you should, try to say your response, record your response either in your mobile phone or on a recorder on your PC or your laptop. Yeah. And after those 40 seconds, because you're doing it on your mobile phone, etc., if you feel like you can always pause or take a bit more time if you have to, but try to keep your responses within 40 seconds. All right. Okay. Let's begin with question number one. All right, that's 40 seconds. If you need a bit more time, you can pause the video and take that time. Otherwise, let's go ahead and have a look at the sample response.
Accelerated MBA programs are a variation of the two-year programs. They involve a higher course load with more intense class and examination schedules and are usually condensed into 1 year. They usually have less downtime during the program and between semesters.
All right, now when you see the text on the screen, you'll notice uh, there are slashes, backslashes between different words. So, for example, accelerated MBA programs slash are a variation of the two-year programs, full stop and a slash. So, as I said, that the initial 40 seconds that you have to use that to identify, where you need to pause, where you need to lower your voice or raise your voice. So, Usually at all commas and full stops, you will pause. And when you're beginning a sentence, you will raise your voice, or if raise your tone. For example, when you're beginning, they involve, at that point of time you start to raise, and when you come towards the end of the sentence, your tone should gradually fall down. Also, when you're comparing options, for example, if there were a lot of commas and different options, then at each option, after the comma, you can again raise your voice to show that comparison. Now, the backslashes, yeah, they are a way to identify. They help you to maintain fluency in speech. Some people, otherwise they'll get stuck. So try to divide the sentence. In your mind, you'll not be able to put these slashes on the screen. So in your mind, try to divide the sentence into smaller chunks. So for example, that when I speak, I'll say accelerated MBA programs. Okay, that's one. Are a variation of 2-year programs. That's second part. They involve a high course load. Third part, and so on. So this way, when you do and when you try to say all of that together, it will provide a fluency, a natural fluency to your speech. Some people, otherwise they might get stuck. First time they might say accelerated MBA programs are a variation of the 2-year programs. So that speech, if it comes across as stuck, as hesitating like that, then you lose a lot of marks. So practice, saying meaningful words together in one go. All right. And if you find that any words are difficult, then try to um, rehearse that before you give your response in the microphone. The other thing you notice that the downtimes, that's in quotes, so you can put a bit of stress there. You can say they usually have less downtime during the program and between semesters. All right. So try to identify things which contain more meaning, or which need extra emphasis, and try to say it like that. Okay. Now, as always, please compare your response with the sample response. If you need to, you can go back and play the sample response. Let's go to question number 2 now. All right, that's 40 seconds. Let's go ahead and have a look at the sample responses. Please note that when you see the text, right, and the way it's chunked into groups, and then the explanation that I give, that's essentially that's the main thing against which you should compare your sample response. Now, there is, sorry, against which you should compare your response. Now, there's a sample response as well, but sometimes the speakers, they are not 100%, so it's not always the best response. But it's a sample response from a natural speaker, so as to help you understand better. All right. Okay. Let's see.
Many programs base their admission decisions on a combination of undergraduate grade point average, academic transcripts, entrance exam scores, a resume containing significant work experience, essays, letters of recommendation, and personal interviews.
All right. So this was a bit easier to identify where to pause. For example, pretty much at all commas you can pause. So, and at every comma, like I said in the earlier question, that when you have to, speak about a list, cover a number of different points, or compare, and then those words or group of words are separated by commas. And then after each comma, you can raise your voice, raise your tone, and that's pretty much what the speaker did. So it was a very good response. Now, when you look at the chunking part, right, the first chunk is many programs. The second is a bigger chunk, but depending upon there's no, so as to say, correct way or one single way in which sentences have to be chunked. So that they depend upon the person, their language skill, and how they feel comfortable. So, for example, this could very well have been chunked as many programs base their admission decisions as one part, and second on a combination of undergraduate grade point averages as second part. Okay, so the chunking is mainly a way for you to identify which parts, which words to speak together so as to bring in fluency to your speech. All right. Other than that, notice the rise and lowering of the tone after each commas and a bit of pause there. Now you can please compare your response with the sample response. All right. Once you've done that, let's start with question number 3. All right, that's 40 seconds. Let's go ahead and have a look at the sample response.
Sydney spans two geographic regions. The Cumberland Plain lies to the south and west of the harbor and is relatively flat. The Hornsby Plateau is located to the north and is dissected by steep valleys. The flat areas of the south were the first to be developed as the city grew.
All right. Simple enough sentence. There weren't any words that were too difficult. As you would have noticed, this speaker, you know, read out the sentence quite slowly. So that's fine. Everyone have their own style. So there's no one correct style. If you naturally you speak fast, then you can continue with speaking fast. If you are a slow speaker, you can continue that. But whatever it is, it should be within the time limit and it should come out as naturally. All right. Remember to compare your response with the sample response. And now let's go to question number 4. All right, that's 40 seconds. Let's go ahead and have a look at the sample response.
This will usually mean that turning traffic will have to stop in order to wait for a breach to turn, and this might cause inconvenience for drivers that follow them but do not want to turn. This is why dedicated lanes and protected traffic signals for turning are sometimes provided. On busier intersections where a protected lane would be inefficient or cannot be built, turning may be entirely prohibited and drivers will be required to drive around the block in order to accomplish the turn.
All right, so uh, while this was an all right response, it wasn't the best. Uh, so some of the mistakes or where this the lady she could have improved better was at the pauses and at the where to raise and lower the voice, the tone, sorry. So for example, on busier intersections where a protected lane would be inefficient or cannot be built, turning may be entirely prohibited and drivers will be required to drive around the block. So she didn't really pause after the comma, the last comma, but a bit of comma and then raising your voice, raising your tone there, and drivers will be required to drive around the block in order to accomplish the turn. That would have made it even better. Okay, now compare your response with the sample response and also make sure compare where you how you chunk the words. Okay, and did your response come out as fluently as possible? Okay. Another thing that I want to point out is that it's usually good, to record your response one, okay, then try again if you are not very happy with it, because this is practice, right? And the the more you record, the more you hear your own voice, the more you'll be able to identify your own shortcomings. All right, let's go to the next question. All right, that's 40 seconds. Let's go ahead and have a look at the sample response.
For quite a long time, dreams of interstellar travel and exploring the final frontier have run rampant in the minds of children and adult scientists alike. And with some of the latest breakthroughs in technology and research, NASA scientists have laid out goals to achieve manned flight to the edge of our solar system in 50 years. In 1994, Miguel Alcubierre put forward a report detailing a method of achieving interstellar travel.
All right, so quite an all right response that was. Now, please notice, the chunking, the pauses, etc. Did you notice any difficult words here? For example, interstellar, breakthroughs, they're not that difficult. So if you notice any difficult words, try to say that in before the microphone opens. So just practice in your mind how you're going to say that. So interstellar, interstellar, interstellar. Okay, practice like that. All right. And if while speaking, you get stuck at a word, then remember if you keep you know if you keep repeating that word again and again, you'll run out of your time and also you lose marks. So it's better just to say it whichever way it comes to your mind and just move on to the next word. Okay, if you can't think of anything, just immediately move to the next word. Alright, but don't get stuck at a word for a long time. Okay, well done. So you have now completed set number 1 of speaking read aloud question type. Take a break if you want to, and then go ahead and start practicing with set number 2. All the best.